Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are diving into the biggest AI controversy of the year, DeepSeek's R1 versus OpenAI. Launched on 20th January, R1 made history practically overnight, triggering one of the largest single-day losses in US stock market history. Not great news for NVIDIA investors, right? So, how did DeepSeek create a model that rivals top-tier performance from OpenAI at just a fraction of the cost? Well, OpenAI is pointing fingers at model distillation, a technique that's not inherently bad but can cross into serious ethical gray areas if it violates terms of use. We know for a fact that DeepSeek uses distillation, but guess what? OpenAI uses it, too. Let's break down what model distillation is, how DeepSeek applies it, and what OpenAI's accusations might mean for the future of AI. Before we get into the drama, let's clarify what model distillation actually is. It's comparable to regular distillation in chemistry, like turning seawater into fresh drinking water by boiling off the salt and keeping the good stuff. In AI terms, it's about extracting the essential knowledge from a massive, supercharged model, the teacher, and passing it on to a smaller, more efficient student model. Here you can see how it works. The teacher model processes the data and generates its predictions, or labels, and explanations, or rationales. The student model learns from these outputs, capturing not just the answers but how the teacher arrived at those answers. This process drastically reduces the student's size and computing needs while retaining much of the teacher's intelligence. Practically, the teacher model is first fed huge amounts of training data, text, code, images, whatever the domain may be, and it churns out both labels, the correct answers, rationales, the reasoning or chain of thought behind those answers, if available. In the next step, the student model uses these outputs as its training data. This means it doesn't just learn the final answer but also picks up on the subtle patterns and relationships that the teacher model has already figured out. Here's the big deal. The student model can become almost as accurate as the teacher model, but with far fewer parameters and a lighter memory footprint. That's super appealing for deployment in smartphones, IoT devices, or anywhere you need a smaller model that still packs a punch. So, what's the payoff of using a distilled model instead of a massive LLM? Efficiency and faster inference. Distilled models run faster with lower latency. Reduced computational costs. They require less hardware, which is great for your energy bills. Deployability on edge devices. Since they're smaller, they can fit onto smartphones, IoT devices, or embedded systems. Specialized fine-tuning. You can still fine-tune these smaller models for specific domains like coding or medicine, at a fraction of the original cost. You might lose a tiny bit of accuracy compared to the enormous teacher model, but for many applications, that's a totally acceptable trade-off. And don't forget, you can combine distillation and fine-tuning. Distill first to get a leaner baseline model, then fine-tune it on specialized data. That way, you're not dealing with billions of parameters every time you want a domain-specific LLM. So, here's where DeepSeek comes in. Their R1 model dropped on 20th January and instantly shook the AI world. The performance was jaw-dropping, on par with OpenAI's advanced offerings, yet supposedly 1,000 times cheaper to build than GPT-4. That's a huge competitive threat. But next thing we know, OpenAI accuses DeepSeek of violating their terms of use by using OpenAI's API outputs for large-scale model distillation. Essentially, the claim is that DeepSeek scraped massive amounts of GPT-4, or similar, responses, effectively turning GPT-4 into a teacher model, all without permission. Distillation, by itself, is neither illegal nor immoral. It's a standard technique in machine learning research. But the source of your training data matters big time. If you are feeding your student model with outputs from a competitor's API that explicitly bars such usage, you could be crossing the line into copyright or contract violations. This is where we hit the murky waters. When is it fair use? When is it an infringement? Legal experts suggest that if data is locked behind an API with specific terms of use, you need proper authorization to use that data in your own training pipeline. Otherwise, you might be in breach of contract. And the stakes are high. If OpenAI has enough evidence to prove that DeepSeek harvested GPT-4 outputs without permission, we could see lawsuits, heavy fines, or even forced takedowns. This might also trigger new industry-wide guidelines on data usage and model training. The specifics. According to rumors, DeepSeek allegedly used multiple, unrelated accounts to funnel data out of the OpenAI API. Microsoft security researchers noticed suspicious data extraction late last year, potentially linking it back to DeepSeek. The big question is this fair use, or is it essentially stealing OpenAI's secret sauce? Remember, OpenAI itself has faced criticism for scraping the entire internet to train ChatGPT without explicit permissions. So, this opens up a whole ethical can of worms. Distillation, by itself, is neither illegal nor immoral. It's a standard technique in machine learning research. But the source of your training data matters big time. If you are feeding your student model with outputs from a competitor's API that explicitly bars such usage, you could be crossing the line into copyright or contract violations. This is where we hit the murky waters. When is it fair use? When is it an infringement? Legal experts suggest that if data is locked behind an API with specific terms of use, you need proper authorization to use that data in your own training pipeline. Otherwise, you might be in breach of contract. And the stakes are high. If OpenAI has enough evidence to prove that DeepSeek harvested GPT-4 outputs without permission, we could see lawsuits, heavy fines, or even forced takedowns. This might also trigger new industry-wide guidelines on data usage and model training. Host stands in front of a final graphic that combines the distillation process imagery and the mention of R1's success. Host. So, here's the bottom line. Model distillation is a brilliant strategy to shrink massive LLMs into something more affordable and deployable. DeepSeek leveraged this approach to create R1, a model that shook up the AI market and hammered stock prices in the process. OpenAI alleges that DeepSeek's distillation efforts broke their terms of use by scraping data from GPT-4. What happens next? We'll be watching closely. Whatever the outcome, it could shape how AI labs everywhere handle data, define fair use, and push for more transparent training practices. Let me know in the comments, does DeepSeek deserve backlash for using OpenAI's outputs, or is this just a normal part of AI's competitive landscape? If you found this breakdown helpful, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more AI deep dives, and I'll see you next time.